The screen of my living room TV flickered to life, unprompted. My next-door neighbor had accidentally cast his screen to my smart TV instead of his own. On it, an intimate video of him and a woman tangled together played in silent, vivid detail. Just another night in the city, I thought, sighing at the raw energy of youth. I was reaching for the remote to kill the feed when my brain buzzed. A sudden, sharp static. The woman in the video shifted, and for a split second, I saw it. The faint, uniquely shaped birthmark on the small of her back. It was identical to my wife's. The video vanished. A few minutes of fumbling with my own Bluetooth settings later, I finally connected to the esports championship stream. The match was in its final, frantic moments, but my interest had evaporated. Half an hour later, the sound of a shower started up in the apartment next door. My mind was a chaotic mess, unable to shake the image of that familiar mark. I opened iMessage and tapped the pinned conversation at the top. It was with my wife, Julia. Her last message was a live photo, sent to check in. Ethan, I miss you so much. I'll be back from the conference tomorrow night. Make sure you get some sleep after the stream ends tonight. The photo showed her and a few colleagues in a hotel conference room, smiling around a table littered with laptops and notepads. I shook my head, annoyed at my own suspicion. I sent a quick reply telling her to take care of herself, then closed the app. The next day was Saturday. I slept in until 4 in the afternoon. When I woke up, Julia was already home, even though I hadn't expected her until evening. I sat up, blinking. You're back early. Julia walked over, holding a gift box with the logo of my favorite esports team. She smiled warmly. Did you forget? She asked. Today's our 5th wedding anniversary. I booked a table at our place. I wanted to get back early to have dinner with you. The conference was in Portland, a solid 3-hour drive without traffic. The thought that she'd driven all that way just for our anniversary softened the knot in my stomach. You should have called. I would have driven down to get you. You must be exhausted. She dropped her luggage and patted over, brushing her cheek against mine. She gave me a quick, firm kiss before grabbing a change of clothes from her bag. I know. You're the best husband, she said, her voice muffled as she headed for the bathroom. Go on. See if you like your present. It's a one-of-a-kind. I opened the box. Inside was a limited edition team jersey I'd been wanting for months. I nodded to myself, carefully placing it in the glass front cabinet where I kept my collection. The cabinet was already full of the gifts she'd given me over the years. We'd been together for 10 years, 5 dating, 5 married. Her love for me, her constant care, had been the one unquestionable fact of my life. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find my neighbor standing there, wearing a basketball jersey. He looked completely different from the man in the video, stripped of all that raw, carnal energy. He noticed my gaze and got straight to the point. Hey, sorry to bother you. I'm the guy next door, he said. My shirt fell on your balcony. Mind if I grab it? I nodded and stepped aside to let him pass. My eyes followed him, then landed on the shirt he retrieved from my balcony railing. I froze. He, however, seemed completely oblivious. My girlfriend was over last night watching the game with me, he explained as he walked back toward the door. Things got a little messy, and it must have fallen over. After thanking me, he handed me a small, elegant box. For the trouble. They're artisanal chocolates from Portland. I didn't refuse. I took the box, shut the door, and walked back to the living room. My eyes fell on the brand new, limited edition jersey in my display cabinet. What a coincidence. A one-of-a-kind gift. And the guy next door just happened to have the exact same one. After sitting in the living room for a few moments, I picked up Julia's phone from the coffee table. My fingers moved carefully, typing in my birthday. Password incorrect. I paused, then typed in hers. The phone unlocked. A sour taste filled my mouth. Using each other's birthdays as our passcodes had been our thing. A small promise. I had no idea when she'd quietly changed hers. I tapped on her iMessage. I was still the pinned conversation. Her home screen was still a picture of me. I scrolled through all her apps. Instagram, Facebook, everything. Nothing seemed out of place. A wave of relief washed over me. Then I saw it. A notification badge on an app I'd installed for her. One that automatically logs traffic violations from city cameras. I opened it, my finger moving as if of its own accord. A list of violations appeared, all from the last month. The location for every single one was Portland, the city where she was supposedly at her work conference yesterday. And the violation photos were damning. One showed her in the driver's seat, leaning over to kiss the man in the passenger seat. The man's face, captured in grainy, municipal clarity, was my neighbor, Caleb Vance. My fingertips went numb. I wiped my sweaty palms on my jeans and kept scrolling. There were no violations from before last month. Caleb had moved in at the beginning of the month. I looked up at the box of artisanal chocolates on the table, and my mind cleared with a brutal, cold light. I remembered now. Every time Julia went on a business trip, she brought me back a local specialty. Her new lover was getting impatient. He wanted to mark his territory. Just as I was about to put the phone down, a new message popped up on the screen from her best friend. "You owe me big time. It took me forever to Photoshop you into those meeting pictures. And those 2 limited edition jerseys? Don't even ask what I had to pull to get them. I had to physically clench my fists to keep my hands from shaking. The business trip was a lie. The whole thing. Last night, she was right next door, in the arms of another man. Even the anniversary gift she'd prepared for me, he had one too. Kept things perfectly fair, didn't she?" Taking a deep breath, I calmly took pictures of the screen with my own phone, documenting everything. Then I silenced her phone and placed it back exactly where I found it. A few minutes later, Julia emerged from the bathroom, toweling her hair. "Ethan, who was at the door?" I forced my expression to remain neutral, my voice casual. "The neighbor." I paused, as if a thought had just occurred to me. "He mentioned he just moved here from Portland. Do you know him?" The motion of her hands rubbing the towel through her hair stopped for a fraction of a second. "How would I know him? We have a new neighbor." She sounded so natural, so composed. Not a single crack in the facade. I pushed the box of chocolates toward her. "You must have forgotten to pick these up on your trip. The neighbor gave them to me. Want one?" Her eyes flickered to the box, and her brow furrowed slightly. But her voice was steady, not a hint of a blush on her cheeks. I was in such a rush to get back. It slipped my mind. "And no, I don't want any. I'm not eating something another man gave you." I looked up, meeting her gaze. "How do you know the neighbor was a man?" The air in the room went still. We stared at each other. A flash of panic crossed her face, but it was gone as quickly as it came. "A guess. It's either a man or a woman, right?" She quickly feigned a pout, trying to pivot. "Besides, if it was a woman, why would she be giving you chocolates?" With just a few words, she'd deflected the question. I looked down, hiding the cold sneer I felt forming on my lips. "I was just kidding," I said. Julia let out a small, almost imperceptible sigh of relief. She playfully punched my arm. "Ethan, you're getting mean in your old age." I managed a weak smile and stood up. "I'm going to go change. We can head out after." After dinner, we were on our way to a movie when Julia's phone rang. I turned my head, pretending not to see the caller ID. "Caleb Redhart?" She answered it quickly. After a moment, she leaned over and unbuckled my seatbelt for me. Her voice filled with apology. "Ethan, something's come up at work. It's an emergency. I have to go in for a few hours." "Okay," I said calmly, just telling her to drive safe. Julia dropped me off at an intersection and sped away. I watched her car disappear into the flow of traffic, my heart sinking with the heavy, overcast sky. Suddenly, a clap of thunder echoed overhead, and fat drops of rain began to fall, hitting my face and tracing paths down my cheeks like tears. She must have forgotten that this intersection was a nightmare for traffic, and nearly impossible to get an Uber from during rush hour. I walked in the downpour, lost in a daze, until I finally managed to hail a cab home. Between staying up late for the stream last night and the emotional exhaustion of the day, my body gave out. I collapsed into bed and fell into a feverish sleep. In a haze, I heard Julia's soft, worried voice. "Ethan, are you feeling any better? Are you in pain?" I felt her cool palm on my burning forehead. She was giving me fever reducers, changing my sweat-drenched shirt, placing a cool cloth on my head. When I finally opened my eyes, her face was etched with genuine concern. A complicated mix of emotions churned inside me. I turned my head away, swallowing the bitterness in my throat. "Better," I mumbled. "Why are you back?" She stroked my hair, a gesture so familiar it ached. "You're sick. How could I possibly stay at work?" I told them I had to go and came right home to take care of you. As she spoke, her phone rang again. She glanced at it and immediately hit decline. "Sounds like someone's trying to reach you. Shouldn't you get that? You're the most important thing, Ethan. Everything else can wait," she said dismissively, bringing over a steaming bowl of chicken noodle soup. She blew on a spoonful, testing the temperature against her lips, afraid I'd burn myself. "Here, Ethan. Eat something. You need to take your medicine after. Then you can sleep some more. I'd barely managed a few sips when her phone screen lit up again, vibrating insistently on the nightstand. This time, she picked it up and read the message. Her body went rigid. She shot to her feet, knocking the spoon from my hand. Hot soup splashed onto my skin, and I hissed in pain. But her attention was entirely on her phone. "Ethan," she said, her voice tight with urgency. "My assistant says there's a client who's an absolute disaster. They need me to go in and handle it. I have to go, just for a little while. Okay? When you're sick, you become needy, irrational." I grabbed the sleeve of her shirt, my voice hoarse. "Can't someone else go? I want you to stay with me." She tucked the covers around me, gently prying my fingers from her sleeve. "Ethan, be good. Take your medicine and get some sleep. I'll be back before you know it." She even placed a few pieces of candy on the nightstand, just like she used to do when I was younger and hated taking pills. She reminded me again to take the medicine, and on her way out, she grabbed the box of antiseptic wipes and bandages from the first aid kit. The click of the front door closing plunged the room into near darkness. I pushed myself up and opened the security app on my phone. I'd installed a tiny hidden camera by the front door when I got home today. The live feed loaded. I saw Julia step out of our apartment. The door to the unit next to us opened, and Caleb stood there, shirtless, holding out a finger. Julia took his hand, examining it with a familiar tenderness, before wrapping her arms around his neck. She tilted her head up and said something I couldn't hear. Then, Caleb pulled her into his arms and kissed her, deep and possessive. They clung to each other by the door, lost in the moment. After a long minute, he swept her off her feet and carried her inside his apartment. I watched the screen, my heart constricting with a physical, crushing pain. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification from the residence group chat. It was a mass alert. An idea sparked. I got dressed and went downstairs. 5 minutes later, the piercing alarm of a building-wide fire drill echoed through the complex. I stood in the open plaza on the ground floor, my phone up, recording. It didn't take long. Caleb burst out of the main entrance, carrying a barely clothed Julia in his arms. When she saw me standing there, she let out a sharp scream. She clutched the scrap of fabric covering her chest, trying desperately to hide in his embrace. A moment later, she seemed to realize the situation and pushed him away. "Ethan, listen to me." I ignored her, my gaze fixed on the man holding her. "Caleb, sleeping with another man's wife. Is it as thrilling as you hoped?" Caleb said nothing. It was Julia who spoke, her brow furrowed as she defended him. "Ethan, you're misunderstanding." I finally looked back at her, my expression flat as I lowered my phone. "Julia, don't bother lying anymore. Let's get a divorce." A crowd of neighbors was starting to gather, drawn by the alarm and the commotion. Julia's face went stiff. "Ethan, don't joke like that. Come home with me right now, and I'll explain everything." She grabbed my arm, trying to pull me away. As she did, my eyes caught sight of the mess of her hair, and beneath it, the dark, angry love bites blooming across her collarbone. A cloying, unfamiliar scent wafted off her, and a wave of nausea rose in my stomach. I instinctively recoiled. The urge to scream, to demand answers, was a roaring fire in my chest. I fought it down, wrenching my arm from her grasp and walking past her, back into the building. When I got back to our apartment, I started pulling my things from the closet and packing a suitcase. Julia stormed in after me and, in a fit of rage, kicked the suitcase over. A small, carved jade pendant, a charm she'd given me years ago to calm my nerves, skittered across the floor and shattered. For a second, I saw 18-year-old Julia. After spending 6 months volunteering at a Buddhist retreat, she'd presented it to me like a sacred treasure. Her eyes were so sincere as she told me to keep it safe. I'd worn it for 10 years straight, never taking it off. Now, 28-year-old Julia was screaming at me. "What do you think you're doing? How could you do this to me? Caleb was just being a good neighbor, helping me downstairs. Why did you do this to me?" The question should have been mine. The rage and confusion in my chest felt like they were about to tear me apart. I shoved her hand away, my voice cracking with emotion. "Because, Julia, you're filthy." The word hung in the air. The anger on her face dissolved, replaced by a ghastly white shock. Before she could recover, Caleb stepped forward, playing the part of the wounded party. "Ethan, how can you talk to her like that? Julia is my mentor. She was my TA in college. We were just talking about my grad school application. What's wrong with that? You can't insult us like this." Caleb seemed to think I was just some pathetic, lovesick husband he could walk all over. He was practically daring me, the neighbor next door, the screencasting, the shirt on the balcony. Each one was a calculated little move to flaunt their affair. I grabbed him by the collar of his shirt and dragged him next door, into his apartment. I pointed at the black lingerie strewn on the floor, the open box of condoms on the nightstand. I held up my phone, the screen still recording. If I remember correctly, you just got into grad school, right? Does your faculty advisor know this is how his students network? What do you think they'll do when they find out you're a homewrecker? You think they'll keep you in the program? My words hit their mark. The smug look on Caleb's face vanished, replaced by sheer panic. He stared at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of terror and hate. Ethan, you're a real bastard. He spat. I'm still a student. You'd ruin my entire future over this. Over this. I laughed. A bitter, mocking sound. Scared now. Without another thought, I swung, my fist connecting squarely with his jaw. Did you think about that when you were screwing my wife? Seeing the violence, Julia rushed forward and pushed me away. She knelt by Caleb, checking his face with a tenderness that was agonizing to watch. Her allegiance was clear. Ethan, that's enough. He's just a kid. A college student. If you're angry, take it out on me. Leave him alone. I couldn't believe it. Even now, she was protecting him. The shove sent me stumbling backward. My weakened body hit the edge of a bookcase. Hard. The next second, I felt something warm and wet trickling down from my hairline. Julia froze, her eyes widening in horror. I raised a hand to my forehead and brought it back. It was covered in blood. The world tilted, and my vision swam. My body went limp, and I fell backward into darkness. Ethan. As I blacked out, I thought I heard Julia scream my name, but the hand I imagined would catch me never came. The next time I opened my eyes, I was staring at a white acoustic tile ceiling. I was in a hospital bed, and IV dripping into my arm. A nurse came over to my bedside. You have a phobia of blood, so you fainted. Your head is fine, just a small cut, she explained calmly. The most important thing is to rest and take care of yourself. I nodded. Right? Nothing was more important than my own health. Ethan, you're finally awake. My best friend, Leo, walked in, holding a payment receipt. He saw me looking around the room and answered my unspoken question. Julia's not here. Just then, the phone on my bedside table lit up. A series of texts from Julia popped onto the screen. Ethan, did the bleeding stop? I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have pushed you. I forgot about your hemophobia. As soon as I'm done here, I'll come find you so we can talk. Okay? I gripped the phone, a sharp, twisting pain in my chest. Leo's voice was a low grumble of condemnation beside me. I was blind. I really thought she was the one, that she truly loved you. You guys were high school sweethearts. 10 years, and she does this to you. He was right. She had loved me, so much, and she, more than anyone, knew how deep the wound of betrayal would cut. My mind drifted back. I was 18, living through the darkest days of my life. The plan had been to go on a trip with Julia after graduation. But I came home one day to find my mother lying in a pool of blood, lifeless. She had discovered my father had another family, a whole other life in a different building in the same apartment complex. He had a son with his mistress, a boy my age. My mother, who had lived for 18 years in the bubble of what she thought was a happy marriage, had been shattered. The shock was too much. She put on the white dress my father had given her and ended her life. Witnessing my mother's death became my deepest trauma. I developed a crippling phobia of blood and severe anxiety. It was Julia who sat with me through countless nights plagued by nightmares. She even became a psychologist, dedicating her life to helping me heal. When her parents and everyone else told her I was broken, that she should leave me, she chose me without a moment's hesitation. Don't be afraid, Ethan, she'd whispered. I'll always be with you. I'll always love you. The more I remembered every detail of her love, the more it hurt. I hadn't shed a single tear since I found out about the affair. But now, the delayed realization hit me with the force of a physical blow. The person who had pulled me out of the abyss had, with her own hands, pushed me right back in. A suffocating pain seized my chest, making it hard to breathe. I pulled the blanket over my head, muffling the sound of my own ragged, silent sobs. After the foredrip was finished, I checked myself out of the hospital. In the lobby, I ran right into Julia and Caleb. Ethan, are you okay? I was just about to come find you. Julia started to walk toward me, but the cold, indifferent look in my eyes stopped her. She stood her ground, her voice dropping to a softer, more pleading tone. Ethan, can I take you home, please? You have nightmares when you sleep alone. I'll worry. For a moment, her concern looked so real, so genuine. I just glanced at her, my heart a frozen block of ice. I've already emailed you the divorce papers. Make sure you sign them. Seeing that I was about to walk away, she called out anxiously and started to follow me. Ethan. Julia, my nose is bleeding again. Caleb whined from behind her. It really hurts. Her steps faltered. In that moment of hesitation, I got into Leo's waiting car and we drove away. I moved in with Leo temporarily. He joked that he could finally drag me out to hang out with our friends again. For years, my world had revolved around Julia. My life so dependent on hers that I'd neglected everyone else. I spent the next few days resting. Julia, meanwhile, refused to sign the divorce papers. She claimed that despite her mistake, she was still deeply in love with me. The thought was so laughable it made me sick. I hired a lawyer, a friend of Leo's named Eva, to file for divorce. My aunt, who lives in Europe, was heartbroken when she heard the news. I told her not to worry, that I'd come visit her as soon as everything was settled. One afternoon, I was meeting with Eva in a coffee shop to go over the details. Suddenly, a cup of hot coffee flew through the air and splashed all over her. I quickly called a waiter to help her to the restroom. When I turned around, Julia was standing there, arms crossed, her face a mask of fury. Ethan, who is this woman? We're not even divorced yet. I looked at her, my voice cold. She's my divorce lawyer, Julia. I'd appreciate it if you showed some respect. But she wasn't listening. Her eyes fell on the divorce agreement on the table, and she snapped. I don't care who she is. No one is going to make us get a divorce. With that, she snatched the papers, ripped them to shreds, and threw them into a nearby trash can. I had no energy to argue with her. If you don't sign, I'll just proceed with the court filing. It will be finalized in a month. It's better for both of us this way. Her eyes instantly turned red. What did you say? Finalized? She asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. We've been together for 10 years. You can just say it's over just like that? Ethan, do you have any idea how much that hurts me? Ava returned from the restroom just in time to hear Julia's last words. She let out a short, sharp laugh. Ms. Ross, before you start pointing fingers, maybe you should take a look at yourself. Let's not forget, you're the one at fault in this marriage. Julia fell silent for a moment, shooting Ava a venomous glare before turning back to me. Ethan, this is between us. Why are you letting an outsider dictate our lives? Let's go home and talk about this. I ignored her and stood up, addressing Ava. Ava, thank you. I'll get the documents you need. I'll be in touch. As we left the coffee shop, Julia followed, blocking my car door. Ethan, it was nothing with Caleb. It was just a fling. I was confused. He manipulated me. You're the one I love. I don't want to lose you. Her hand on the car door was shaking uncontrollably. She seemed to have lost all sense of public decorum. Ethan, please, can we not get a divorce? In my days, she suddenly bent over, gagging violently. The next second, I saw her break out in a cold sweat, clutching her stomach. Without a second thought, I helped her into the car and rushed to the nearest hospital. Half an hour later, a doctor came out with a chart. Congratulations, Mr. Cole. Your wife is 2 months pregnant. The news hit me like a physical blow. I was stunned into silence. Julia, on the other hand, took the report, her eyes lighting up with a flicker of manic joy. She clung to it like a life raft. Ethan, this is wonderful. We're having a baby? She exclaimed, her mind already racing ahead, painting a picture of their future. It was as if our conversation about divorce had never happened. Ethan, we can't get a divorce now, right? You wouldn't want our child to be born into a broken home, would you? Julia took my hand and placed it on her still flat stomach, her eyes shining with maternal love. The words, I don't want this baby, were a lead weight on my tongue. After a long moment, I numbly pulled my hand away. Using the excuse of paying the bill, I fled the suffocating atmosphere of the hospital room. I was smoking a cigarette downstairs when I called Ava to ask about the legalities. She sighed on the other end of the line. In this state, filing for divorce while your spouse is pregnant is complicated. The court can delay proceedings until after the child is born. Mr. Cole, you might have to wait. So, I was trapped, stuck in this marriage until the child in her belly was born. My thoughts were a tangled mess as I headed back upstairs. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard voices from inside. It was Julia, talking to her best friend, who was also a doctor. "You have to help me keep this a secret. He can't find out. I can't lose Ethan. This baby is the only way to keep him." Her friend's worried voice carried through the door. "But what if he finds out the baby isn't his? Julia, are you sure about this? It's not fair to him." Before she could finish, I kicked the door open. Bang! I strode into the room, my eyes burning holes into Julia. "Julia," I demanded, "is this baby mine or not?" Before she could answer, someone else burst into the room. It was Caleb, panting and out of breath. He saw Julia and his voice was frantic. "Julia, I heard you were pregnant. It's mine, right?" Julia's face went dark. "No, what are you talking about? How could I be pregnant with your child?" Caleb was stunned by her absolute denial. "But, you always said you wanted to have my baby. The doctor said you're 2 months along. That's right when we were—" "Shut up, Caleb," Julia snapped, her voice raw with panic. "You wore a condom. How could I get pregnant if you wore a condom?" Caleb, however, was adamant. "The baby is mine. You and Ethan haven't slept together in months." He turned to me. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I don't want our child to be born without a father. Please, I'm begging you. Don't fight me for this baby. You, of all people, know what it's like to grow up in a broken home." "Caleb, shut your mouth," Julia shrieked, her voice a mix of fury and terror. My whole body trembled, but my heart had sunk to a cold, dead place. How laughable. The deepest, most private trauma of my life, a nightmare I could barely speak of, was something she had casually shared with her lover like gossip over coffee. Before I could say a word, Julia's friend had hustled Caleb out of the room. A dead silence fell over the hospital room, broken only by the frantic pounding of our hearts. It was obvious whose child it was. As the truth settled, a strange sense of relief washed over me. Any lingering shred of affection I had for Julia evaporated, leaving only disappointment. After a moment, she looked at me, her face a mask of desperation. She reached for me, but in her haste, she tugged on her foreline. The sharp pain made her cry out, "Ethan, don't listen to him. The baby is yours." I took several steps back, putting a safe distance between us. I placed the paid medical bill on the nightstand and looked at her, my voice devoid of all emotion. "Julia, I have no interest in raising another man's child. And for the record, with or without this baby, we are getting a divorce." I turned and walked out, ignoring her desperate pleas behind me. For the next few days, Julia tried to win me back. She sent coffee to my office, flowers, a new limited edition gaming console. She reenacted all the sweet things she used to do for me. This time, I refused every single gift. A week later, I was coming home from a therapy session when I found Julia's parents waiting for me outside my new apartment building. Without a word of greeting, they launched into a tirade. "Ethan Cole, is this how you treat our daughter?" Her mother shrieked, hands on her hips, "Forcing her to have an abortion, and now you want to divorce her? After everything she's done for you, you ungrateful bastard." Her father stood beside her, nodding in furious agreement, looking like he wanted to throttle me. It took me a moment to piece it together. Julia had had an abortion, and they were blaming me. I had no patience for a screaming match. "If you want to know why we're getting a divorce, you should ask your daughter," I said flatly. "And the baby wasn't mine. The abortion has nothing to do with me." At my words, Julia's mother's face turned purple with rage. "What kind of garbage is coming out of your mouth? If it wasn't yours, whose was it? You're not only a coward who won't take responsibility, but now you're slandering my daughter's name." I let out a cold laugh. "You think I'm talking garbage? Was what your daughter did so honorable?" Her father lunged forward, grabbing my collar. "You son of a bitch. My daughter went through a pregnancy for you. Everyone, come and see. How can a person be so heartless?" Their shouting had attracted a small crowd of my new neighbors, who were now murmuring and looking at me with judgmental eyes. "That young man is going to get what's coming to him, forcing his wife to have an abortion and then divorcing her. Someone should put him on blast online. People like that need to be exposed." I scanned the crowd, my voice sharp and clear. "If your wife was pregnant with another man's child, would you stay with her?" Their expressions shifted. A wave of awkward silence fell over the small crowd. Seeing the tide turn, Julia's mother tried to recover. "Don't listen to his lies. And don't you have any responsibility in this, Ethan? So what if she made one mistake? You can't forgive her? Don't you forget, if it weren't for our Julia, you'd probably be dead by now. Her twisted logic was so absurd I almost laughed. Just then, a taxi pulled up and Julia, wrapped in a heavy coat and scarf, got out. She said something quietly to her parents, who shot me one last hateful glare before leaving. Julia, her face pale and drawn, bent down and picked up the medical file I had dropped during the scuffle. Her expression was unreadable, but her voice held its usual note of concern. Ethan, have you been having nightmares again? I got rid of the baby. Can you come home now? I'll make you that calming soup you like. It will help you sleep better. I felt a hysterical laugh bubble up inside me. Julia, don't get the wrong idea. I was just at a routine follow-up. Since I've been away from you and your boyfriend, I've been sleeping better than I have in years. A look of profound grief crossed her face. The hand holding my file froze. She searched my face, desperate to find a lie, a hint that I didn't mean it. When she found none, her composure finally shattered. I'm sorry, Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. It's me. I'm the one who needs you. I can't live without you. She looked so fragile, her body, which had just undergone a serious medical procedure, slightly hunched. The woman who had always been so proud and confident was now begging, her eyes red and raw. There was a time when I would have done anything to prevent her from shedding a single tear, a time when I felt her smallest pains as if they were my own. But now, looking at her, I felt nothing. No pity, no compassion. Steeling myself, I pulled a thick folder from my briefcase and threw it on the ground in front of her. It contained all the evidence I had collected, along with a detailed list of our assets. Here are the bank statements for all the money you spent on Caleb. Here is the proof of your marital infidelity. I have no problem taking this to court and making sure both of you are ruined, publicly and professionally. Julia stared at the papers, her tears forgotten. After a long moment, she looked up, her voice a hollow whisper. Ethan, do you really have to be so cruel? We loved each other for 10 years. How can you do this to me? I looked at her, a humorless smile playing on my lips. Julia, what right do you have to call me cruel? Did you think you were being kind when you were sleeping with Caleb in the apartment right next to mine? She shook her head frantically. Ethan, I swear, I don't love him. I was lost, and he took advantage of me. I cut her off. Julia, I gave you a chance, more than one, but you disappointed me, again and again. My voice caught in my throat. You shouldn't have. The one thing you shouldn't have done. You let him live right across the hall, Julia. My vision blurred for a second. You are the one who created this mess. There's no going back. Hearing my words, the last flicker of light in Julia's eyes died out. I'll be at the courthouse at 10 tomorrow morning, I said, my voice flat. I bent down, retrieved my medical file, and walked away without looking back. The next day, we signed the papers and were officially divorced. As we walked out of the courthouse, Julia looked at me, her mouth opening as if to say something. But before she could speak, her phone began to ring, loud and insistent. Annoyed, she answered it. As she listened, the color drained from her face. What? How? How could this happen? She murmured, distracted. Without another word to me, she rushed to her car and sped off. During the mandatory cooling-off period, I took my accrued vacation time and went to Europe. I went skiing in Switzerland and watched the sunset in Colmar. For a month, I turned off my phone and cut off all contact with my life back home. When I finally landed back in Seattle, Leo was there to pick me up. He filled me in on what had happened. The day we got divorced, Julia had rushed off because her career was imploding. Someone had filed an anonymous complaint against her with the state medical board, accusing her of professional misconduct and an immoral personal life. The story spread like wildfire through the hospital, and facing a staff protest, the board had suspended her license pending a full investigation. Leo shot me a sidelong glance. Ethan, that wasn't you, was it? I just smiled and changed the subject. Doesn't matter who it was. Come on. I'm buying you dinner tonight, the best steak in town. Later that evening, at the restaurant, I came out of the restroom and ran into Caleb. He was working there as a busboy. The moment he saw me, his face contorted with rage. Ethan Cole, you've got some nerve showing your face around here. You destroyed my life. And you divorced Julia and had the nerve to leave her with nothing. You aired all her dirty laundry and got her license suspended. If you had a shred of decency, you'd give her her share of the assets. I wondered if he'd been reading too many romance novels. I laughed in his face. Feeling the pinch now that Julia's cut you off? If you're so concerned about her, why don't you give her a few million to tide her over? My words hit a nerve. His face flushed red, then pale. He dropped the tray he was holding and lunged at me. I easily sidestepped him, pinning him against the floor. I let him go, assuming he'd back down. But as I turned away, he grabbed an empty wine bottle from a table and swung it at my head. Ethan, look out! Leo yelled, yanking me back just in time. The bottle shattered against the wall, but a shard of glass still managed to slice a long gash across my arm. That was the last straw. I wasn't letting him get away with this. I called the police. Not long after, Julia showed up at the station to deal with him. Seeing her after a month, she looked exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes, but she forced a smile. Ethan, you're back from your trip. I gave her a curt nod and said nothing more. Caleb had instigated the fight and assaulted me. Neither Leo nor I were willing to drop the charges. Surprisingly, Julia didn't argue or plead. She posted his bail, and they left in silence. At the station entrance, she called out to me one last time. Caleb doesn't have any family here. That's why he called me, she said, as if she owed me an explanation. There's nothing between us anymore. I cut her off. You don't have to explain anything to me, Julia. She let out a hollow laugh and just stood there, watching me. She never asked if I was the one who had ruined her career, and I never told her. I thought that would be the last time I ever saw Julia, but on the anniversary of my mother's death, I found her waiting for me at the entrance to the cemetery. It's your mom's anniversary today, she said softly. Can I go with you? I shook my head. No, thank you. I can do it myself. Ethan, she looked at me, her lips trembling, her eyes red. After a long moment, she whispered, Ethan, I am so sorry. The cool autumn wind rustled the small bouquet of wild daisies I'd placed on the headstone. They were my mother's favorite. A sense of finality, of peace, washed over me. I smiled, a genuine smile. It's all in the past now. I walked out of the cemetery toward my parked car. As I reached the curb, a pair of blindingly bright headlights flared in the distance. I instinctively shielded my eyes. Before I could process what was happening, a car was accelerating directly toward me. Suddenly, I was shoved forward with incredible force, tumbling into the soft soil of a flower bed. I heard the screech of tires on pavement, followed by the sickening thud of a heavy impact. I scrambled up and looked back. Julia lay on the asphalt, blood pouring from a wound on her head. She had pushed me out of the way. My mind went into overdrive. I pulled out my phone, my hands shaking, and dialed 911. At the hospital, I learned the driver was Caleb. After being arrested, he'd been expelled from his graduate program. He'd only gotten in because of Julia's connections, and his recent behavior, coupled with the assault charge, had made him a liability the university wasn't willing to tolerate. After Julia had her abortion, she had cut him off completely. Having lost both his academic future and his benefactor, he directed all of his rage at me. He'd found out I would be at the cemetery and had planned to run me down. Because he had slammed on the brakes at the last second, Julia survived, but she had multiple fractures, and her hands, the hands of a skilled psychologist, were severely injured. The day Caleb was sentenced, Julia was discharged from the hospital. I didn't concern myself with their affairs any longer. My new life was waiting. After saying goodbye to my friends, I packed my bags and booked a one-way ticket to Europe to live with my aunt.